How dare you talk to me that way? You're so ungrateful and selfish.
It's not what you said, it's the way you said it.
You never listen to me.
That's because you never shut up.
Can't you keep that baby quiet?
You can't tell me who I can and cannot date. Stay out of my life.
I can understand why you are upset. God has always helped us. I know we can work this out.
Hey, welcome today to all of our churches and our network churches and those of you from countries around the world at Church Online. Today, we're in the third week of a 4-week teaching series called Bless This Home. If you're just now joining us, what we're doing is we're looking at the teachings of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 in a section that's known as the Beatitudes, where Jesus gave us 8 different directions for those who would be blessed. Now, Jesus was talking to everybody, but what we're doing for the purpose of our study is we're applying the Beatitudes to our homes. Bless this home, because honestly, so many homes today are not as blessed, I believe, as God would want them to be. The first week we looked at the Beatitude, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Last week we looked at the very powerful words, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Next week is my personal favorite of the 4 messages for families. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about peace in the home, because honestly, so many of our homes are not characterized as homes of peace. Instead, if you look at our homes, you would have to say they're characterized by conflict or by tension or by strife, and I believe that God has something way better for us, that He wants our homes to be characterized as homes of peace. Now, some of you may say, okay, you're talking to me. My home's got a lot of dysfunction in it, but most of it's not my fault. And the reality is that may be true, because every home has an incredibly difficult family member. Every family, if you look somewhere, maybe not in your home, but in your extended family member, everyone has a psycho, difficult to deal with person. It's a spiritual principle, right? Right? Just to prove it, every family has a cycle. All of our churches, those of you who say, somewhere in my family there is a psycho difficult person, raise your hands up right now. Just raise them up, leave them up, raise them up, leave them up. Look around the room. Almost every hand is raised. Leave them up, if you will. There are a few hands that are not raised right now. Remember, every family has a psycho. If your hand's not up in the air, you're the one, right? Yeah, I mean, relationships are just difficult and they're challenging. And it's amazing, especially in our families, how easily we can slip into dysfunctional cycles in our relationships. For example, my oldest 2 daughters, Katie and Mandy, they're 19 and 17 years of age today. I can remember back when they were little girls. One time they were wrestling on our bed, and Katie had Mandy in a headlock and was going to throw her off, and Mandy wrapped her body around as if to say, I'm not going off this bed without bringing you with me. And so when Katie threw her, Mandy held on, and both of them together fell to the ground, and they squealed and they screamed, and Katie stood up and looked at Mandy and said, "You hurt me!" And Mandy said, "You hurt me!" And then they smiled and said, "Let's do it again." And they got back up on the bed and went for it one more time. And I know we're kind of joking about that, but wouldn't you admit that so often in our dysfunctional and unhealthy family dynamics, sometimes it boils down to, you hurt me. No, you hurt me. Well, let's do it again. And again we end up in challenging relationships instead of those that are characterized by peace. Now, I don't know what it would be for you. Maybe you're trying to raise your kids and your mom keeps looking over your shoulder, giving you advice. You're like, stay out of this, Mom. And there's tension between you and your mom. Or maybe it's your own kids. They fight all the time, and you find yourself saying things you thought you'd never say. Don't make me pull this car over. I'll pull this car over. And then you count to 3 and nothing happens. And then you count to 5 and nothing happens. And then you count to 40 and nothing happens. So you just take a bath and give up because your kids are still fighting. Maybe you are the kid, you're a teenager, and you think, my parents will never trust me. And they're always breathing down my neck. They're so controlling. You might be in a blended home, and you're trying to raise your kids and her kids and our kids, and there's exes involved, and it's so incredibly complicated. You wonder, how could there ever be peace with all these moving parts? Some of you might be at a place where you to this day have not forgiven your mom or your dad for something that happened years and years ago. Today, we're going to look at one of the Beatitudes of Jesus, and I have tremendous expectations that God is going to do a lot of healing in a lot of hearts. This is what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. If I could get all of you to help me out with this, he said, blessed are the what? Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for what will they be called? For they will be called children of God. Say it again. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Now, when Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, there's 2 words from the original biblical language is translated as peace. In the New Testament, the Greek word is the word irene. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew word is the word shalom. And for years, the word shalom has been a well-known greeting. The original words for peace mean a little more than often what we think in our English language for the word for peace. The word peace, shalom, it means more than just the absence of bad. I wish that you don't have hard times. It also means I wish you the highest good. When Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, he doesn't just mean I want your home to be strife-free, but I also want you to have the highest good. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called children of God. And when Jesus said this, just like the other 7 Beatitudes, everybody listening would have been shocked. These were very countercultural statements because everyone there had been raised with the mindset, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You know, someone hits you, you tap them back, okay? Someone steals something from you, you take something from them. And he was saying something that was very shocking. Blessed are the peacemakers. There is a higher calling for those of you that want to follow me. Now, if you'll notice, he said, blessed are the peacemakers. He didn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers. And there's a big difference. For years and years, I was kind of a peacekeeper, and so are you, but there's a difference. And I put these in your notes just to kind of differentiate. What are peacekeepers? Peacekeepers often avoid conflict to keep the peace. Peacekeepers, they'll work around the issues, not through the issues, trying to keep the peace. And so we kind of get to this place where it's like, let's just have a truce, okay? Let's just not talk about it. Let's get together at family dinners and we'll smile and act like we're getting along, although we really know that there's tension behind the scenes, but we're not going to show it because we're happy at this meal, no fighting, okay? And then what happens? Months go by and then something sets you off or somebody else, and then there's like this, I'm sick and tired of you did this and this and this and this and this. Like, where did all this come from? What happened is there were dozens of unresolved issues along the way. Jesus didn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers. He said, blessed are the peacemakers. What will a peacemaker do? A peacemaker will embrace conflict to make the peace. We're not going to work around the issues. We'll work on the issues. We'll work through them. and with the help of the Prince of Peace, Jesus, we believe there can be peace in our homes, which brings us to our key thought for this series. If you weren't here in previous weeks, you won't know it, but those who know it, you can say it aloud. Our key thought is this: we are not just a what? We are not just a Christian home, but what are we? We are a Christ-centered home. We're not just a Christian family, but we are a Christ-centered home. Now, some of you may be saying, what's the difference? I don't see any difference. Well, there really shouldn't be a difference, but unfortunately, in our culture today, the word Christian, at least in my country, doesn't mean what it used to mean. Some 80% or more of our culture says, I'm a Christian. I mean, I'm not something else, so I must be a Christian. But you'd have to agree that 80-some-odd% of our homes would not be called Christ-centered in the way we do life. What is a Christ-centered home? Jesus isn't just a part of our life, but he is our life. We are fully devoted to following and serving and knowing and bringing glory to him. In a cultural Christian home, in a home that's Christian in name only, I mean, when there's a hard time, we just write somebody off. We'll just screw them, forget them, or I don't want to mess with them, and forgive them? No. I mean, after what they did, I would never forgive them. They'd have to come back to me crawling on their hands and knees, and then I'm just going to make them pay for a little while. And that's normal. In a Christ-centered home, though, we say, what does Jesus teach us about how to do relationships? And he said, blessed are the peacemakers. Paul said something very complimentary in Romans 12, 17, 18, and verse 21. And he said this. He said, do not repay evil for evil, which is what everybody had been taught to do. He said, be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. Now here's the power statement. He said, if it is possible, as far as what? Everybody say it aloud. He said, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, what are you to do? He taught, you are to live at peace with everyone. For those of you sitting back going, I hope old so-and-so's listening to this, because bless God, they need to hear it, okay? No. You let God speak to you. As far as it depends on you, you do everything possible to live at peace. Then verse 21. He says, do not be overcome by evil, but instead we're going to overcome evil with good. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So, if we're going to be a Christ-centered home and we're going to be peacemakers, what do peacemakers do? What do they do? Let me give you 3 things that they do. The first thing peacemakers do, number 1, is they tell the truth in love. They tell the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15 says, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, because we are a Christ-centered home. We will tell the truth in love. Notice it doesn't say to yell the truth in love, right? Do you always leave your clothes on here? You know, that's yelling, and that's not in love. We tell the truth in love. Now, back when I was in seminary, I had a course on counseling, and there were a few things I remember. A couple I think would be important, and you may jot these down in your notes. How do we tell the truth in love? A couple things that are really, really important would be to tell the truth in love during non-conflict times. During non-conflict times. That's when we work on important issues. In other words, if someone's throwing a shoe at you because they're angry, that's not the time to raise a new issue, okay? We work on them during non-conflict times. The second thing I remember is that we attack the issue, never the person. We confront the issue, never the person. Non-conflict times, and then confront the issue, not the person. I'll give you an example of a time when Amy did this very effectively with me. In our life group, I lead the life group, and there are times when Amy will talk for a while.